Retro.
Hello there. This is James Arnold Taylor, the voice of Obi-Wan Kenobi, and you're listening to Dennis and Jay on Podcast Stardust. Their behavior is continuously unexpected. So uncivilized.
Hello, and welcome to Podcast Stardust. This is the fully armed and operational podcast dedicated to Star Wars news, reviews, and discussion. I'm Dennis Keithley.
And I'm Jay Krebs.
And it's our first brand new show of 2026. We hope you've all enjoyed our look back that we did with a couple of random rebroadcasts over the past 2 weeks as we took our little holiday hiatus. But we are now going to come back with some New Year's resolutions for some Star Wars characters that we're going to be talking about quite a bit over the coming year. But before we get into what we think these characters need to do, Jay, you want to go ahead and remind everybody what our social media contacts are?
Absolutely. Well, you can continue to follow us on Instagram and Facebook, same places we've always been, at Podcast Stardust.
All right. Yeah, I'm going to have to actually go through Facebook and figure out what I haven't posted because it's been a while. So,
I know,
I'm behind.
it's been the holidays. We're a little out of practice with everything.
Indeed. All right. The dish is aligned. The signal's boosted to maximum output. The shield is down. We are now broadcasting to the galaxy. So we started a tradition about 4 years ago where we would do New Year's resolutions for various Star Wars characters. And at first it was like any and every Star Wars character. But over time, we've been kind of updating it. And we are going to try and focus on some characters that I know that we're going to be talking about quite a bit over the course of the coming year. As we've already announced, we're going to be doing our year-long series on the Force Awakens. So we got some resolutions for some Force Awakens characters. We are going to be expecting the new Mandalorian movie, so maybe some of them, Ahsoka Season 2, Darth Maul, Shadow Lords coming out. So you get the idea. These are the type of characters that we're talking about. And that are going to be prominent on Star Wars. Plus, maybe a surprise in here. We'll see. Something we haven't announced yet.
Yeah.
Okay. With that said, we've got to get started with these. And the very first one, well, speaking of surprises, Jay, what do you think Darth Bane needs to resolve to do in 2026?
Wow, I think the Force just predicted this here. That's for sure. And we'll have to explain why here in just a second. Okay, well, Darth Bane, of course, he is the founder of the Rule of Two. And maybe he needed to admit that the whole thing just ended badly for him personally. But I guess that's he needed to resolve to believe that. Maybe he I know that with the Sith is kind of the thing, but maybe stop designing evil systems that depend on betrayal to function. But that's kind of his way. So that's a little hard to do.
Yeah,
But, yeah.
I think he got his way with the Rule of Two. That's what he wanted.
He did.
It's someone to to hold the power and someone else to crave it, and that's how the Sith would go forward. And it worked for millennia, just fine for him there. I think I'm going to be a little bit more practical and say maybe get those obelisk things removed a whole lot sooner than he did.
There you
so
go.
he doesn't find himself being pumped full of toxins and completely dependent on an apprentice who may decide your time has come with Darzana. So at any rate, that'll there we go. So yeah, we might as well go ahead and break the news here. But we are going to try something new on the podcast over the course of this year, and that is a book club. And while we will continue to review and discuss new novels as they come out over the course of this year, we are going to focus on one book and break it up into chapters and discuss it over the course of the year. And that book this year, Jay, you think anyone can guess what it might be?
I don't know. Could it have something to do with Darth Bane?
Yes, absolutely. So, yeah, Darth Bane, Path of Destruction by Drew Karpyshyn. So, we haven't set up when we're going to record the first episode of that, but be looking for that in the coming weeks. And so we hope
Yes,
you all will join with us. It's Darth Bane is huge with us. So, I
indeed.
know we've made plenty of references to him over the years, and that book is just one of our collective favorites. So, I'm looking forward
Yeah.
to
And
doing a deep dive on it over the course of the year.
And selfishly, it's one that I listen to every summer. It's just kind of a summer thing for me. I don't know why, but like the whole series I like to listen to when I'm outside in my flower beds or, out for a run or whatever. So I'm super psyched to be able to really break it down and talk to you about it because I know we're going to have a blast with that.
Indeed. All right. Well, the next character that we've got up for resolutions is Hera Syndulla, the leader of the crew of the Ghost. Of course, we know her from Rebels and from Ahsoka, and we're looking forward to seeing her in Ahsoka season 2. So what does she need for resolutions here? There's so many possibilities, I think. And first and foremost, she's gonna have to deal with Thrawn, I guess,
Yeah.
coming up.
Hmm.
So something about that. But I also think um I think she needs to kind of get to the bottom, get ahead of whatever's going on with Jason and Force powers. So, well, Ahsoka's in a completely different galaxy at the moment, so that wasn't in for that. But seeing maybe if you can find someone that can explore that with Jason, I think, and get him on whatever path. Well, I guess Ezra's back, so why not him? That would be so cool if
Oh, I
Ezra
know.
became Jason's master on that.
Yes, please make it so. I mean, that
Mhm.
that would that just brings it full circle, and it just
Mhm.
makes so much sense for that to happen. Absolutely.
Mhm.
I love that. I think one thing about Hera is that she oftentimes she talks about herself as being, the mom of the ghost crew and pretty much everybody else too.
Right.
And she's done so much to pull her way into the middle of things. But sometimes I feel like she does that in sacrifice of her own well-being, whether
Mhm.
that be emotionally or mentally or maybe even physically, who knows? So maybe one of her resolutions could be to stop putting the rebellion before her own well-being, not necessarily meaning that she doesn't, want to pay attention to it, obviously, but maybe she just needs to have a little bit more self-care because I don't think she ever really allowed herself to do a lot of grieving either along the way. So maybe giving herself time to grieve and to hope at the same time.
You're going deep. Okay. So,
Well, Hera is in my soul, so, one of my
yes.
girls.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed. Okay. Well, next up on our list is the chosen one himself, Anakin Skywalker. So, what do you think for Anakin here?
Oh, goodness. Well, maybe stop losing his lightsaber.
Hmm.
He does that an awful lot. But, on one of those deep levels, maybe allowing himself to learn to let go of things. Not necessarily in the way that what Yoda said, but just letting himself let go of things that would potentially destroy him and, be very unhealthy for him.
Mm. Well, I'm choosing to look at resolutions for Anakin from the point of view of where we saw him last, and that is as a Force Ghost on Peridia, looking over Ahsoka and Sabine, as they're there. And it
Mhm.
occurs to me, he's come back to do some mentoring for Ahsoka, and maybe he views that as unfinished business. But did he ever visit Luke or Leia after he became a Force Ghost? I
Right.
mean, there was an allusion to that at least happening once in Legends, but I don't know that it's happened in canon. And so, Anakin, go see your kids. Come on. I'm sure you've got some wisdom you can pass on to Luke with his Jedi training. And now that we know Leia became a Jedi or did that training early on, yeah, let's get that figured out. Because everything I've read from canon suggests that it never happened.
Mhm.
And I'm thinking of the Bloodline book that Claudia Gray wrote about Leia.
Right.
The everything about her who her parents were the big secret, and she didn't really profess to have any interaction with Anakin from the standpoint of, being visited by her father after he was redeemed to the light. So, I mean, we really haven't had an opportunity to get a whole lot from Luke's perspective that way. So maybe it did happen, but I don't think they really touched on it in Legends. So there we go.
No, yeah, I like that. And as much as I am not a fan of the whole AI thing taking over, there is an account that, and I can't think of the name of it, but they have created a what if type scenario with things like this. And there is
Mm.
one where Anakin is talking to Luke and one where he's talking to Leia. And I got to tell you, in the one that he's talking to Luke, Luke is very Luke like in the way that he is, forgiving his father for the things that he couldn't control and the decisions that he made and so on and so forth. Leia wasn't having any of it.
I'm
And
not
she just
surprised.
let him have it right back.
Yeah.
And I just thought, wow, whoever did this really did capture those characters. So again, I'm not the biggest fan of AI, taking away from a lot of other things, but the account that did this, and like I said, I wish that I could remember what it was, but they did a great job. And I was like, wow, this is like right out of the pages of, from a certain point of view kind of thing.
Yeah. I want to say in Legends, it was maybe at Truce of Procura, was the book that takes place like right after Return of the Jedi. And while Leia and the rest of the Rebel Alliance are responding to this SOS that they get from this old Imperial world that is getting attacked by the Shrook. I can't remember what the name of that species is. Anakin's Force Ghost comes to visit Leia, and she wants nothing to do with it. She keeps telling him to dissipate, go away, whatever. And he's basically pleading with her that, I've only got a limited amount of time. So, I can't remember what exactly he says to her, but that's how I remember that going down. But
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah. I don't think I ever read that book. That needs to go on my list.
Oh, okay. Well,
It's one of my resolutions.
if we get through enough books on our book club, we can put that one there. So,
There you go.
okay.
That'd be
All
great.
right. Up next, we've got Grogu. So I'm not sure he's old enough, and I'm not sure that what's the word to use? I'm not sure he understands what a resolution. I'm not sure he's capable of really understanding what a resolution is in order to make one. But, anyways, assuming he could, what do you think for Grogu?
Well, maybe to, try to figure out if something that he eats is actually food or a sentient being. That would be very nice of him to do, I think. Or at least asking before he just steals people's food. I think that's probably a good idea for him. At least
Yeah.
ask first.
Yeah, not just helping himself to everybody else's food
Yes,
all the
stop
time. I
being
mean,
such a glutton, Grogu.
if he wants to eat frogs, go for it. But yeah, maybe not stealing your classmates' macaroons would be a good way to go there. Okay.
Oh, what about you? What do you think? Just kind of
Well,
along those same lines?
yeah, well, that's what I was thinking as I made the list for us to go through today. That was what I was kind of thinking of him, is because, like I said, I just don't know that he's a developing child in this
Mhm.
situation, and he looks to Din Djarin for certain guidance, but I don't know that he's really capable of coming up with a resolution on his own. So maybe it needs to be those that are taking care of him help him understand, develop those childlike manners about, not taking food from other people, because how would that make you feel? Understanding the golden rule. That's what it should be.
There you go.
I think we've just nailed it right there. Okay.
I like that.
Okay.
Perfect.
So next we've got Hondo Anaka. And the reason why he is in this discussion is, well, I'm sure he's going to come up in an episode of the Clone Wars as we go through our rewatch, but the Smuggler's Run is getting an update, and Hondo is the mission giver there. So yeah, what to say about Hondo? I like him just the way he is. And,
Right.
he's developed over the years from being the really selfish pirate to the one who he gets a bit more bumbling when we get to Rebels, but he gets to be, I don't want to say kinder, but he not quite as selfish. He's always looking out for himself, but he becomes a little bit more legitimate, and he becomes a little bit more basks in the camaraderie of the thing. You know, like he answers the call with at the Battle of Thal to, you know, and helps out the crew of the Ghost there. So what to do for Hondo? And again, he's running Anaka's transport solutions, I think is what it's called there
Yes.
on Batu. And you know, I mean, he's a businessman now. He's going legit. So there we go. Stay on the straight and narrow that year. Don't relapse into old ways. Keep growing that business. Steal the coaxium from the Empire all you want, but leave everybody else alone.
Oh, I love it. I love
Yeah.
it. And you know, the thing with Hondo is that he was so unhinged at first, you know, in the Clone Wars, and he was we talked about his evolution quite a bit as a character and his character arc and the way that he eventually, as much as he hated to admit it, maybe actually cared
Mhm.
about other people just a little bit, especially some specific Jedi and Ezra. And,
Mhm.
you know, and I feel like that's something for him that he really maybe also needs to do is to lay down his emotional, you know, barriers just a little bit and admit that he actually cares about people and let them into his circle just a little bit more, maybe trust just a little bit more. Not to the point where of course his business gets taken advantage of, but I think that that would be an amazing thing.
Okay. So next in our list is Finn.
Oh my gosh. Okay. The first thing that comes to mind is maybe stop yelling Ray all the time and and actually focus on what needs to be done. No, that's really really mean. I'm sorry. Maybe he will actually explore his connection to the Force, you know, in the way that we've all kind of thought or prophesized or theorized, I guess you could say, that maybe was there, and that maybe he can actually, you know, go off on his own and explore that. What do you
Yeah,
think?
yeah, that's kind of where I was thinking is that you know, when we last see him in The Rise of Skywalker, it is always being just a moment too late in wanting to tell Rey whatever it is he has to tell Rey, which we're all pretty certain is that, you know, he can feel the Force, he's Force sensitive, especially since, you know, he had that connection. You know, he could tell when Rey faded out and then before she came back there at the end of Rise of Skywalker. So um yeah, I think it is a it's some sort of a focus on this thing. You know, he's extremely loyal. I mean, when he got separated from Rey during the Force Awakens, which is where we saw him, you know, he was ready to move heaven and earth to go rescue her, and that's why he volunteered for the mission to go to Starkiller Base, and that's all good and well. But you know, this is a character who has a good story arc over the three
Mhm.
episodes. I think he got a little shortchanged in the Rise of Skywalker with how
Yes.
much he was in it, but I think wrapping it up, taking those final steps on that journey, and you know, Poe promoted him to general there in the Resistance, and so grasping all of these aspects here and doing something as opposed to just kind of letting the galaxy take him where it may.
I agree. I like that a lot. And, you know, you and I had talked about reading the book that he is in. Oh gosh, I can't think of it right now, that we didn't get to at the
Mm-hmm.
end of the year last year.
The Last Order by
For the
Navalia.
last order. Thank you. Yes. And I'm wondering if there's a little bit more explored in that. So,
Yeah, we'll have to find out. I mean, it's still on my
yeah,
list. I'm almost done with Master of Evil, which we'll be probably getting to on the show
me
sometime next
too.
month. But yeah, I need to get pick up the Last Order and read that. It's just so hard. They both came out, November and December. That was just not a convenient time to be getting into books
No.
with
Yeah, with all the
everything's going on.
holidays. Yep, definitely.
All right, Chewbacca. So I feel like this is the guy that least needs a resolution out of everything. I mean, he is
Mhm.
so, you know, I when I think of Chewbacca, other than the moments when he gets upset, and he doesn't, I don't think he really has that much of a temper. He puts up with a lot, especially from the likes of Han. Then later, you know, he just kind of follows Rey around and puts up with whatever she's doing. So, you know, when we see him in, you know, we can talk about him from, I think, from two aspects that'll be relevant here. You know, last time we see him really is the Rise of Skywalker, and I think for him, it is what's next. Is he going to continue to be? I don't want to. I think he's more than a sidekick, but is he going to continue to be the sidekick to Rey and tag along and help her with the rebuilding the Order and finding potential Jedi, or is it go back to Kashyyyk and find Lumpy and his tribe and, continue to rebuild things there in a post First Order world and the like? So for him, I think the resolution needs to be is to set the course of whatever is next for him.
No, and you're right along the same lines as what I was thinking as well, because I mean, he's about as perfect a character as you could ever get. I mean, he's loyal,
Mhm.
he is incredibly wise when it comes to, being able to kind of just be there for everyone. And, without him, Han would have fallen apart, Ray would have fallen apart. I mean, we've seen so many different instances where he's kind of been the glue that holds everything together. But like you, I almost feel like he needs to take the reins of leadership
Mhm.
because he is fully capable of doing that. But the thing of it is maybe he doesn't want to. Some people are just okay, and there's nothing wrong with that, with being the support person. But, I think for Chewie, he needs to speak up just a little bit more. Maybe he does need to make his wishes a little bit more known. But I like the idea what you said of going back to Kashyyyk too, and maybe reconnecting with family. I like that idea as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Up next is the Mandalorian himself, Din Djarin. So what do we think for Din?
Let's see. Well,
Or
right.
I guess what do we think for Djarin? For people, yeah, we
I
found out.
know, it's so weird now that we have that revelation.
Mhm.
I mean, he's kind of done this, but maybe, stop removing his helmet in every emotionally significant location he visits. Sorry,
Yeah.
Jordan.
Pick a
There's
path here.
that.
You're either following
Exact
the way of Death Watch or the Children of the Watch, or you're not. So just pick one.
Right, and I think that that's a big thing for him is maybe he needs to resolve to actually define what the way means to him
Mhm.
and truly explore that, not just recite it. I
Yeah.
like that.
I'm trying to think of these characters in the scope of what it is that, for the most part, I just did something different with Chewbacca here, but in the scope of where we're going to be talking about them this year,
Mhm.
and it is going to be for the Mandalorian and Grogu for the movie, and this follows season 3, where he basically is taking Grogu on these journeys to work on his apprenticeship and raise him as a Mandalorian. So I think for Din Djarin and Grogu, Din, again, there I do it again. Djarin needs to concentrate on what is the way to train Grogu. I mean, I can't call him by species. We don't know what that is, but the Baby Yoda is what as we got to know him for so long. How do you train someone like this who has a very slow development phase? I mean, here he is 50 years old, 50 plus years old, and he's still toddler at best right now. And
Mhm.
so are those old Mandalorian ways the way to do it? Or, can you break with tradition a little bit in order to complete this training? So,
Yeah, and that's so hard because, we don't really know where the the state of the training is going to be when we get to this movie.
mhm,
So, yeah, so that's tough. And especially because Grogu has somewhat of a split path. I know Grogu chose the way, but he still has the Force and he still has that Jedi ability, and there's always going to be probably that little bit of a desire to maybe go that path as well. So yeah, I think you're right. I think Jaren's going to have a lot of challenge ahead of him with that for sure.
I think I'm just going to resolve to try and call him either Mando, Mandalorian, or Din Djarin, and
Right.
because it's, I don't know, it's just so weird at this point. I mean, eh, the the name is the name, and that's fine, and they're entitled to do it however they want. But after we spent so long calling him Den, for them to drop on us like the very last episode of The Mandalorian that it's Din is the
And Grogu, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
so Din Grogu, and so it was like, oh, okay, so that's That's a family name. All right, fine. Now you tell us.
We'll just call
All right.
him Din and call Grogu Din Jr.
Just call him Grogu. It's so much easier. It's
Exactly.
yeah. Okay. Shin Hati.
Oh,
So this one is prime for all kinds of resolutions here. And especially where we saw her last, that she's on Peridia. Balin Skull has just told her that their paths don't really align. She's interested in whatever power she can accumulate and finding her place in this nascent empire that's about to reborn, as Balin is predicting. And so she needs to go find her way in it while he goes and explores whatever the Mortis God connection is there on Peridia,
yeah.
as we've seen it.
Yeah.
So for her, I think it is the resolution needs to be, again, it's pick the path on this one. We
Mm-hmm.
saw her go find those raiders and then she ignited her lightsaber. So it looked like that's where she was starting, is that she was going to establish herself with those raiders. And so whatever it is, commit to your path and find your own way forward on this. And I'm assuming she and Balin will cross skulls. Will
That too.
cross paths again, and at some point over this. But for her, it's she has her goal is the accumulation of power and finding a place in the empire somewhere. So commit. That would be it.
Right. Yeah. And she's right on the precipice of what could be so many different destinies.
Mm-hmm.
And so, one of the things that I see for her though is that she's so angry. And I feel like she oftentimes confuses anger and destiny as being intertwined. And so maybe just stop confusing the two. You know what I mean? And I also feel like she needs to stop waiting basically for permission to exist. I just feel like she's always been so far under Balin Skull's wing. And now that she's out of it, she's got this crazy, way of going about things that she's really unstoppable. And so, yeah, maybe, but yet be able to question authority at the same time. But she's got
Mm-hmm.
a lot on her plate, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Defining her own purpose is a big part of that, I think.
Here's one right up your alley, much like an earlier one, but Ahsoka.
Oh,
What?
okay. Wow. Well, there's, we're, as you said, where we're going to get to see her in season 2. I mean, obviously she's, on Peridia with Sabine. And I think for Ahsoka, she's also got a lot of unresolved, I wouldn't say anger necessarily, but, when she went out on her own and she basically embraced the mantle of I am no Jedi, but yet she was. And then now that she's got all this time to be with Sabine and to embrace that relationship again, I think maybe letting go of those negative things in her past and embracing her true potential as not only Sabine's friend, but potentially her teacher, and just going forward with that.
Yeah, see, Ahsoka's hard based on where
Yeah.
we saw her last, because look, they dropped her into a character arc in that first episode of the season that not everybody liked, which was she was struggling with her legacy.
Hmm.
The legacy that Anakin left her. He fell to the dark side, and she wasn't sure what to do with that until we had the World Between Worlds. The encounter between them, and Anakin taught her some lessons there. She was struggling with what to do with a Padawan, and Sabine, but she overcame that. And so by the end of the season, she had largely completed the character arc that was laid out for her, unlike Shin Hati, unlike Balin Skull, unlike so many
Hmm.
other characters in the series. There, so they haven't given us a lot. I mean, we could be extremely practical and say you got to get a resolve to get off Peridia and back to the known galaxy so you can help fight Thrawn. But I mean, come on, that's a short term goal. That's not a resolution for an entire year.
Hmm.
So I mean, if I'm going to give anything here, she's got an opportunity. She's here on Peridia. She's going to find herself. She doesn't know it yet. She hasn't seen what Balin Skull has seen with the statues of the Mortis gods and that that shining temple in the distance there. But she's going to find herself back there, And that is an opportunity to explore the connection of the Force. So, as one of the premier Force users in the galaxy right now, embrace that. Embrace the exploration of the Force. I think is the resolution that she's overcome all those things, and so now it's a time for a different type of growth, positive growth. Beyond, you're already in a positive place, but now pick up that extra growth, so to speak.
Yeah, I love that. And you know what's so enthralling to me is just the whole idea that Ahsoka obviously has had experience with Mortis before,
Mm-hmm.
and to revisit that, has to be a little bit of a trauma trigger for her in more
Mm-hmm.
ways than one. And so I'm wondering how that's going to play. I've thought about this a lot, like how that's going to play into the whole storyline too. And how is she going to deal with that?
I'm really
Oof.
hoping that her encounter with Anakin puts her on the right foot for that.
Yeah.
Um, all right. Well, we're about out of time, but I want to do one more just because it's like the one thing coming up next year that we haven't really touched on, and Darth Maul. I didn't pick this one at random. I deliberately picked him, but we're getting Shadowhunter or Shadow Lord at some point this year. Uh, and it is going to be talking about him, resurrecting his criminal empire, the one that he started over the course of the Clone Wars to conquer Mandalore and begin his own little empire. Then, of course, the Emperor took him down, or we should say Darth Sidious at that point, taking him back. And now he is rebuilding that, Crimson Dawn and the like, which should be leading us up to Solo at some point. So, what is the resolution for Maul in this? And I
Yeah.
think it is, again, and I'm getting a bit repetitive here, but it is a keep your eyes on the prize on this. Do not get distracted by Obi-Wan Kenobi being out there somewhere.
Yes.
Do not get distracted by the Emperor, your former master, being on Coruscant and craving that power. It's, you are putting together a new empire. Keep your focus where it belongs. So don't get distracted. I think that's the resolution I'd give pick from all.
I think that's a great one. And it's hard because where we are in his story, we obviously know what his eventual resolution, not to,
Mm-hmm.
play on words there, to his story actually is. And so this is kind of bridging those two storylines sort of together.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think for him, a lot of it too, like you said, keeping your eyes on the prize, is that Maul is often led astray by the idea of revenge, no matter what that is. So whether it's like you said, the idea of Kenobi or whoever it might be, is that it does very often derail him.
Oh yeah.
And and I've very much often used the example of Maul as being the Sisyphus, which I borrowed that from Sam Witwer himself talking about
Mm-hmm.
him, in that he's constantly rolling that boulder up the mountain only to have it roll right back down on him again. So I think you're absolutely right. He needs to, put a little bit more money where his mouth is, so to speak, when it comes to being able to keep that momentum going instead of rolling back on top of him again.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
Well, there we are. That is our resolutions. There's a lot of characters that we didn't get to there on the list, but we only have so much time. But if we have some more time next week, maybe we'll revisit some of these other characters. But anyway, thank you all for joining us for this episode of Podcast Stardust as we kicked off 2026. And thank you for letting us indulge with our New Year's resolutions episode. It's a tradition that we like, and I plan on continuing to do it as long as we're recording this podcast. But if you've enjoyed this and the other content that we put out in the recent past, I hope you'll consider subscribing to the podcast if you haven't done so already. And then once you've done that, we appreciate your ratings and reviews wherever it is that you listen to your podcasts. You can find the entire back catalog of shows over at retrozap.com. And while you're there, you can find all the other great shows that are on the network. So make sure you check them out as well. Jay, you want to go ahead and remind everybody of our social media contacts one more time?
absolutely. So you can always continue to find us on Facebook and Instagram, where we've always been at Podcast Stardust. And you can also check out our plethora of Pinterest boards as well as our YouTube outlets. So we have the traditional YouTube as well as YouTube Music, where you can listen to the shows, like, subscribe, share those out, and let us know. Do you have any other ideas for resolutions for the characters that we mentioned? If so, we'd love to hear them. You can also do that by emailing us at podcaststardust@gmail.com. And not only can you send us your ideas, but please send us your questions. So please resolve to send us those questions. And when we have enough, we will put them together in a listener question episode. And we're really excited to be able to do that.
Right. And this is episode 984 of the show. We are rapidly approaching episode 1000. So I'd really like to get your all's questions about the show, about what we think about any topic about Star Wars, anything that you want to know about with regards to the show, so that somewhere around that 1000th episode, because we're going to be doing a lot of reflecting, and I'd love to hear what you want to know about the show and its history and us. So please make sure you get those questions in.
I love that. I love that. And one last thing, we also have our TeePublic store. So in 2026, if you're looking for a closet refresh as one of your resolutions, we'd love it if you would sport some Podcast Stardust out in the wild. So check out that link in our show notes, and you can pick up t-shirts, sweatshirts, and all kinds of other fun stuff as well.
All right. So here's the part of the show where I talk about what's coming up next. And while I'm on that subject, I just want to put out there, for the first 6+ years of this show, we've dedicated ourselves to getting 3 episodes out per week. We are going to continue to strive to do that. However, I cannot promise you that we will get 3 episodes out every week right now. This is shaping up to be a busy, at least first half of the year. So we are going to, again, try and do the news at the end of the week, if there is any. And then we will be doing, continue our Clone Wars rewatch. And then Wednesday will be kind of our feature episode. But Jay and I were talking, we've got lots of things going on this year. So there's some weeks that there's just going to be 1 episode. There is going to be some weeks that there might be 2, where, again, we're going to always try and get 3, but I can't promise you that that's always going to be the case going forward. We just need to have a little, this hiatus we just took for the holidays kind of demonstrated to us that we need to be a little bit more flexible with ourselves. So
yes.
With that having been said, we are looking forward to a fantastic 2026. We've got so many ideas. We just told you about the Darth Bane Book Club. We're going to be breaking down the Force Awakens in 10-minute segments over the course of the year. Jay's going to continue to do the World Between Worlds segment. And, everything else that we do. We got the Mandalorian and Grogu coming up that we'll be spending a lot of time discussing. We're going to be doing other books. Darth Maul, Shadow Lord, when that comes out. Hopefully Ahsoka season 2 at the end of the year. We'll be breaking all that down that we're looking forward to in the next episode, which will be on Monday. That's going to be our 2026 preview. And then on Wednesday, we are getting back into our Clone Wars rewatch. So we hope you'll join us for all of that and the rest of 2026. We've got a lot of great things going on this year. Mm-hmm. So with all of that said, thanks for listening to episode 984 of Podcast Stardust, everyone. Have a great weekend. Happy New Year. Let us be at least the last to wish you that. And until next time, may the Force be with you.